Location of the second Starship tower revealed. Not where you might think. Starship 28 is getting close to another test. Are they finally ready? Nova C lands on the moon but breaks a leg, and Blue Origin rolls out a gigantic new gland. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It. Let's dive right in. Starship updates. It's been 3 months since we saw a Starship prototype in the air, and it looks like we're finally getting close to seeing another one. There are, however, some things that have to be finished before the next stack can clear the tower. Let's analyze together what's left to do for SpaceX. Follow me. Our journey kicks off at the suborbital section of Starbase, where Ship 28 stands ready on the legendary Pad B. After replacing 2 or more engines at the production facility, SpaceX opted for the cautious approach, deciding on an additional engine test to ensure no corners were cut. This is very important. Having the odds as high as possible on the next flight will ensure that the next license after that can be issued quicker. Despite several road closures being announced, the 6 Raptors mounted on this prototype didn't get the opportunity to demonstrate their power yet. But this may change soon. A promising indicator of an upcoming test was the removal of the ship lifting jig from the rocket on February 24th. Furthermore, the Starship's upper stage was decorated with its S-28 decals, so it's unlikely that this prototype will have to visit the high bay ever again. It is here to stay. Regarding the static fire test, there is a possibility that it may have already been conducted by the time you're watching this episode. Road closures like to change hourly. Should the test not have occurred on the 26th, there are additional windows on February 27th and the 28th for potential testing. These are the final steps for Ship 28 before nothing is left but a launch. How about the booster? After returning to the production site, Booster 10 was placed on one of the 3 work stands within the first megabay. The booster's absence from the launch site has given the team additional space to focus on the ground infrastructure, or Stage 0 as some call it. And work hasn't stopped here for a minute in the past few days. From the ground up, it seems the reinforcement of the concrete base is nearly complete. Given how heavy duty these plates look, they shouldn't fly off the tower during the next launch. It is just one of the many changes needed to achieve true rapid reusability. Everything needs to be extra beefy. A lot of working time is also dedicated to the launch deck, which really took a beating during the last launch. Restoration work began shortly after liftoff, with scaffolding still present atop the deck to this day. In the future, we may see the implementation of a water jacket atop the mount. By circulating water not only below but also above the launch table, everything should be a bit more Raptor resistant. Is that a word? The spotlight, however, shines the brightest on the ship quick disconnect arm. This critical component is responsible for delivering fuel and power to the ship. Through efforts captured in photos by our photographer John, teams are seen actively removing, attaching, and welding various parts to the arm. Currently, most updates are based on trial and error, but ultimately it should result in a tower design that requires close to zero refurbishment after a launch. Although the launch site's current state might not look like it will be ready for a launch in the next 2 weeks, SpaceX has a reputation for pulling off the impossible. What is your guess? How long will it take SpaceX to achieve rapid reusability of the tower and the launch table? What needs to happen? Share your predictions in the comments. But there's more to the launch site than just the tower. Thanks to aerial pictures in collaboration with Redline Helicopter Tours, let's gain a new perspective from above. There is something special about the bird's eye view. Behind the tower, we can see the removal of a tank. It was a part of the deluge system, responsible for the water spewing from the plate under the launch table, although from what we know, it wasn't actually used for anything. Adjacent to the water delivery system is a structure initially shrouded in mystery. We identified it as a heavily reinforced restroom for the workers. The bunker toilet gives you a certain sense of safety when doing your business during a launch. The framework used to construct the roof was recently removed, revealing that this time the pour went beautifully. This is another small yet crucial task ticked off the pre-launch checklist. Can't launch with the bunker toilet still being constructed next to the rocket. The most interesting developments, however, are visible at the front of the new tank farm. Remember how SpaceX recently removed some of the large vertical GSE tanks? Workers are either in the process of connecting several of the newly installed smaller tanks to the existing pipes, or are on the brink of completing this task. During the flyover, we saw the arrival of this interesting puzzle piece. Ground-level photos revealed later that 2 such tanks had been delivered and mounted at the front of the tank farm. They were previously utilized for liquid nitrogen storage. Their future role remains uncertain, though it is plausible they'll serve a similar function in the new location. What's clear though is that this rework of the tank farm is far more extensive than initially believed. The site also witnessed the delivery of multiple industrial vaporizers. These devices are designed to convert cryogenic liquids back into their gaseous state by channeling the liquid through a long tube with fins. We expected their delivery since the day 2 water tanks were removed from the original vertical farm setup. While initial speculation suggested that these vaporizers might occupy the space left by the tanks, there is also a possibility that they may end up at the front, right next to the freshly installed tanks. Taking all this into account, my current launch readiness assessment stands at a roughly 90%. 2 weeks at most and SpaceX should be ready. As this tank farm upgrade continues, the future may bring additional tanks, this time to support a second orbital tower. Yep, we finally have official confirmation. We know where it will go, and we mentioned this as a logical spot a few months back. Let's test your memory. On February 22nd, a public notice issued by the US Army Corps of Engineers gave definitive proof of SpaceX's future plans. This is as official as it gets. The document reveals that the company wants to utilize a small additional portion of the wetlands to construct a second orbital launch pad. 0.16 acres of extra land. That's not enough for a tower. Here's the important part. The second tower will replace the existing suborbital infrastructure. It is official, the days of Pad B are numbered. Okay Felix, but you've mentioned wetlands. What's up with that? The map provided in the document gives us a hint. SpaceX wants to use this tiny area, measuring approximately 650 square meters or roughly 7,000 square feet. But can't they just build the tower where Pad B is? Think of it this way, building the tower near that area of the wetlands would give them one crucial advantage. SpaceX could begin the foundation work, lay down the concrete base, and even stack the tower while keeping Pad B fully operational. This way they would still be able to test prototypes as usual and switch over to Massies just when everything is fully operational, which could take a few months. It's a pretty genius solution. Now we just have to wait for the first signs of construction. It's incredible how much you can discover by looking at things from the air. How about you see all of this yourself? Book your own ride at Starbase and see these things in person, or just enjoy one of the most incredible views in the world. Go to redlineheli.com/Felix. You'll find the link in the description as well. I promise you won't ever forget this. Now, before we continue with Starship news, here's a quick word about an alternative you should try.
Thanks, Felix. And I was wondering, what browser do you use? If it's not Opera, you're missing out on essential features. I rely on Opera for remote work because of its workspaces, tab islands, and wallpapers. These functions help me keep my home and work tabs neatly designed and organized, saving space effortlessly. Aria, Opera's AI, accelerates my news browsing and video research by explaining highlighted topics and answering my questions concisely, saving me from tab overload. I can access these answers within, there's my dog. I can access these answers within the sidebar, where I can also seamlessly connect to all my special media and streaming platforms, listening to songs and receiving messages without leaving the browser. Why settle for less when Opera offers the extraordinary positive experience, enhanced productivity, and simplified life all for free? Upgrade your browsing experience today. Opera. Productivity made simple.
Moving to the build site, the biggest thing to catch our attention is the first megabay. Do you see it? The entrance is shorter than usual. Don't worry though, this change is the culmination of the hangar doors installation process. The door, when closed, occupies a portion of the entrance, so a panel to cover it was installed for protective reasons. Consequently, the current super heavy booster design with its hot staging ring now represents the maximum height that can safely pass through the entrance. So it appears that when Elon Musk mentioned that Starship will be taller in the future, he meant that only the ship will stretch. It will look interesting. Observing from the heli, we can see progress on 3 mega projects discussed in previous episodes. The U-shaped office structure is beginning to show signs of work. The appearance of foundation footings and rebar work suggests the main construction phase is just around the corner. Meanwhile, the Star Factory is steadily progressing towards completion. Our speculation about a slight change in the factory's blueprint seems to be confirmed. SpaceX decided to add a storage section to the front of the older Star Factory phase. They likely want to create a new ring yard, making a sheltered space to store stack-ready sections, protecting them from the elements. As the new phase of the factory expands towards the location of the former production tents, it looks like we're only a few months away from full-scale Starship production. Further developments are unfolding in the direction of the Sanchez site, where the installation of piles is underway at the existing parking lot. This is the beginning of the upcoming colossal endeavor behind the Mega Bay, the 6-story parking garage. On top of all that, a collection of intriguing objects captured our attention at the heart of the Sanchez site. The easiest to spot is the booster transport stand. It's the same design as the one used to move Booster 10. It appears mostly complete, so it should enter service relatively soon. More boosters will be able to move at the same time, likely in preparation for a faster launch cadence. Adjacent to it, components lie waiting for the assembly of yet another booster stand. Right next to it there's a disc-shaped object, which kind of looks like the top of a tank. Its purpose remains a mystery, though the circular panels nearby hint at the potential construction of a specialized tank. A ShipW Platform is also among the finds, destined for installation in the second Mega Bay. More, faster, faster, faster. This edition will enable simultaneous work on 3 ship prototypes, similar to how the first Mega Bay can now hold 3 super heavy boosters. Lastly, a puzzling jig with a ring base stirs speculation. There is nothing that reveals its function, so we're open to your theories. Do you have any ideas? Leave them in the comments. Now, you've watched more than half the video and you're still watching. Thank you, this means you like it. We've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. While you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter for exclusive SpaceX updates. With it, you get access to daily Starbase photo galleries, including satellite, aerial, and ground photos of SpaceX's progress, and countless other extras on top. And no matter how much you decide to give, everyone gets the same supporter content and access. You decide what you want to give. Check our new website as well, launch previews, road closures, the latest weather reports, and our multi-stream viewer, whataboutit.space. The link to our Patreon page and the new website is in the description. Thanks to all the supporters who help fulfill dreams for our team. We can't thank you enough, you rock. Thanks for doing that. Now we have a reason to celebrate. The United States has finally returned to the moon after over 50 years. If you've watched our recent episodes, you're likely familiar with the Nova-C lander, which Intuitive Machines developed. Launched on a Falcon 9 on February 15th, Nova-C's objective was to deliver various experiments to aid future Artemis missions alongside payloads from private companies. Following separation and the commissioning of its engines, the lander executed 2 trajectory adjustments, culminating in a lunar orbit injection intended to achieve a stable 100-kilometer or 62-mile circular orbit around the moon. However, things didn't go exactly as planned. The achieved orbit turned out to be slightly elliptical. Luckily, a subsequent correction burn fixed that. The anticipation was building as the February 22nd landing date approached, when Intuitive Machines encountered a critical issue. The navigation system wasn't working properly. Discovering such a significant problem mere hours before the intended landing of a mission valued at over $100 million is far from ideal. Yet fortune was on their side again. Did you know that among the payloads on Nova-C was an experimental system named NDL, or Navigation Doppler LiDAR? It used 3 tiny telescopes and was designed to test the navigation system for the future Artemis missions. This unexpected issue provided an opportunity to test NDL in a real-world scenario. Odysseus used Artemis tech. The incredible programmers at Intuitive Machines swiftly wiped up a software patch, enabling the lander to navigate using NDL rather than its primary system. This is insane. Do you know what caused this problem in the first place? Did a cable become loose during the launch? Maybe radiation killed a crucial component? The truth is actually a tad embarrassing. It turns out that during the lander's pre-flight preparations, the team forgot to flip a switch that would have armed the navigation system. A more thorough pre-flight check would have prevented this entirely. Happens all the time, and it's an excellent example of how important final checks are. Despite this hiccup, one additional orbit was all the time they had, as the cryogenic propellant was constantly boiling off. Can you imagine the tension? They had just switched to an entirely different nav system. The mission proceeded with the engine reactivation, initiating the lander's deceleration phase. It then shifted from a horizontal flight to a vertical descent. Simulation data projected a landing time of 1724 US Central Time on the moon's surface. The landing confirmation was expected to be delayed by approximately 15 seconds, the time it takes to send and receive a request from the lander. However, minutes ticked by without any signs of communication. This didn't look good. Eventually, a faint signal broke the silence, indicating that the lander was alive. Unfortunately, the weak signal strength suggested that the lander tipped over. The live broadcast concluded without a definitive answer, but a follow-up announcement from the company confirmed a successful landing, with the spacecraft standing upright on the lunar surface. Well, that was nice. However, the initial celebration was premature. The next day, during a press briefing, it was announced that the landing didn't go as planned. The target was a touchdown velocity not exceeding 1 meter or 3.3 feet per second, yet the actual velocity was apparently higher than that. Moreover, the lander failed to cancel all its horizontal speed before touching down. These two factors likely caused one of the lander's legs to break upon impact, resulting in the spacecraft tipping over. But wait, didn't they tell us that it was upright? Did they just lie to us? Well, it is complicated. At first, data from the lander's propellant levels suggested it was standing up. However, it was later discovered that a sensor malfunction provided stale readings. Furthermore, the gravitational data indicated that the lander was positioned on an incline rather than being toppled over. Fortunately, the unexpected orientation of the lander did not significantly impact most of the payloads. The primary challenge following the landing was the limited communication bandwidth, worsened by some antennas being directed towards the moon's surface. This necessitated prioritizing the transmission of telemetry data and system logs. One of the most exciting points of this mission was supposed to be the deployment of Eagle Cam, a small box with cameras which was designed to separate 30 meters or 100 feet above the lunar surface. The last-minute software patch required to navigate the lander to its landing site unfortunately meant that this deployment was initially called off. On the bright side, Nova C is currently in a position that allows it to push out the Eagle Cam, meaning that we may still get a pretty sick shot. Overall, the IM-1 mission can be called a success. Although the lander ended up sideways, it still allowed most of the experiments to operate as normal. The valuable data gathered from these experiments will help with the planning and execution of future Artemis missions. Looking ahead, Intuitive Machines will hopefully learn from their mistakes and refine their lander design. Their next touchdown is scheduled for the end of 2024, so hopefully all that time won't go to waste. Finally, we have yet another vehicle which will have to live up to its promises, hopefully this year. New Glenn is a bit of a myth in the space industry, widely discussed but rarely seen. However, that narrative is beginning to change. After years of secrecy, Blue Origin is starting to peel back the curtain on its first orbital rocket. Why have we even been waiting for this rocket for so long? What is so special? That is easily answered. Most people vastly underestimate New Glenn. Simple answer, because it is big. Did you know that it was this big? Thank you, Lewis, for the visual reference. You may recall that in January, our photographer John captured a glimpse of New Glenn's first stage en route to Launch Complex 36. Subsequently, Blue Origin released its own images, showing not just the first stage but the upper stage as well. And the hardware featured in these photos is partially intended for actual flight. By the end of January, the integration of both stages was completed, prepping for rollout. Blue Origin then proceeded to test its transporter erector by using a pathfinder for the first stage and a simulator for the second. On February 21st, nearly 4 years after its initial launch date, the first mostly assembled New Glenn made its way to the launch pad. While it is still missing its engines, this doesn't mean it was rolled out just to get some pretty shots. Over the next few weeks, the company has plans to load the rocket with propellant, liquid oxygen for both stages, methane for the first and hydrogen for the second, and to conduct a cryogenic test. Following this critical test, the next steps will likely involve engine installation and a potential static fire. New Glenn's maiden flight is scheduled for the end of 2024, and it's slated to carry actual payloads, 2 satellites for NASA's Escapade mission bound for Mars. This is, of course, assuming that the launch doesn't encounter any delays. Otherwise, NASA may be forced to wait until the next transfer window in 2026. However, if the mission proceeds as planned, NASA will get a pretty good deal on this one. Reportedly, the launch has been priced at just $20 million. There is a high probability of failure, as with every inaugural launch, but for just 20 million, it may be a risk worth taking. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more awesome content. This is what fuels the algorithm and helps us immensely. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A link is in the description. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Decorated. Decorated. Million gablüppels. One of the most Frank Farm. However, if the mission's